and welcome to the Sporting Global podcast. And today we're here with Carlos Canto. Carlos, thank you for taking the time. It's a pleasure having you here.
It's a pleasure to be here, and thanks indeed for the opportunity and for inviting me to be with all of you.
Absolutely. And I think today our audience, I think you guys can be really excited about the topic because we're going to really dive into some of, the sport business trends that are happening now in the future. And it is a very exciting time. And, with Carlos' expertise, we're going to dig his brain a little bit into trying to understanding the trends and talk a little bit around that, because I think it will be, very exciting for all of you, especially the young people out there. They're trying to understand, where is the industry moving? Obviously a lot of stuff happening with the pandemics, a lot of innovation and technology happening because of this challenging time as well. And we're going to dig a little bit into that. So, but before we do that, Carlos, I think it would be great if you could just share a little bit about your background, your experience with our audience, so they can get a little bit better sense of who you are.
Okay, perfect. No problem. A pleasure. So, yes, I study at ESADE Business School, my BBA as well as my MBA. Then I moved to a purely focus on tourist and entertainment consulting firm.
Nice.
I became partner through an MBO management buyout.
Right.
Then I moved to Segos, which is, as you know, a human resources, HR, training, recruiting company for 3 years, becoming director of communication. And then I moved to IMG.
Right.
Very, very proud. 10 plus amazing years where I had the opportunity to travel a lot, to contribute in a lot of projects in different countries and to learn a lot as well.
Right.
And then I moved for 2.5 years to Lagardère Sports. And then since September 2016, I have my boutique consulting firm, SPSG Consulting, a boutique specialized in sports, entertainment, in sponsorship and partnership. Along with this, and in addition to this, I'm a member of the board of the Spanish Marketing Association and the guy in charge of sports chapter. I'm a professor at the ESADE Business School, at IE, Instituto de Empresa, and La Liga Business School and Escuela Real Madrid.
Right.
And then also I'm very, very honored to be a member of the advisory board of your company, Sporting Global, as well as other entities such as the World Football Summit, for example, and OCLO as well. So yes, indeed, that's me, and a great pleasure to be with you at the board of the advisory board, of the Sporting Global.
We're excited to have you part of it. And I think, for all of you out there, Carlos has an experience from all different sides of the industry, both from an academic perspective, but also the professional side. So it's sort of a nice mix, of understanding the mechanisms and sort of, again, why, we're excited to have Carlos as part of it as well, because we're trying to bridge that gap, but I think, first and foremost, then I think we're just going to dive straight into the topic here. What are some of the sport business trends you've seen emerging, sort of in the last few years? What has been sort of hot topics that people are, looking into right now?
That's a very, very interesting question. And especially, for students, right? And for people that are really fresh in the sports industry. I would say six trends. One, absolutely professionalism.
Yeah.
More and more sports industries consider as a very, very professional wise.
For sure.
We need to be very, very aware that the sports industry globally accounts for between 1.5 to 2% of the GDP, global GDP.
Yeah.
Okay. Only in Europe, it accounts for 2.12%.
Right.
And 2.7 to 2% of the employment within the European Union, which means the industry need more professionals.
Absolutely.
Professionalism means better skills, more education, training, etc., etc., etc.
Right.
So actually to be better prepared to compete, and also because the industry is more and more and more appealing.
Yeah.
So more competition as well. So I would say this would be the first trend moving forward, professionalism.
And it's so important, if you think about it too, in terms of the increased revenue, from sponsorships, brands, all media partners coming in. So you need people with the right kind of skill set and knowledge to be handling this. And hence, obviously, why you need to increase the professionalism, and why that's been growing so much the last few years.
Absolutely. Professionalism, it does not only include to know a little bit how the sport industry works,
right,
which is very, very useful, obviously. But it also includes, how a business is run, for example, as well as all the skills and professional competences, leadership, project management, communication, resilience, etc., etc., etc. So again, professionalism.
All right.
The second, I would say, a more diversity of revenue streams.
Yeah.
You have mentioned some of them.
Right.
But this is the portfolio of revenue streams have dramatically increased over the last 10 to 15 to 20 years.
For sure.
That's the second one. The third one, I would say that is a consequence of the sports being considered as a real industry. So more and more investors are interested in entering into the sports industry, which means venture capital, investment funds, etc., 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 are analyzing and assessing opportunities in the sports industry and investing.
Yeah, and
the third one,
not only from sorry for interrupting there.
Oh, please, again, it's a conversation.
I was thinking sort of like, from an investment perspective, like before we sort of like saw like the typical, how can I say, the multi-millionaire billionaires that are like, okay, I'm going to buy a club and kind of like, have it as my hobby, sort of like we still see some of that. But at the same time now you see there's much more of a business focus of like, how can we, take this club or sports organization and increase the revenue, not only from their own personal side and their own business, but from, the sport industry. And of course, looking into the new, startups, the sports tech, the sport industry startups that are growing as well, that you see a lot more, investors being aware of. And that comes back to your first point, Carlos, with like the professionalism, the increased professionalisms. You will see a growth also in revenue, as you said in point 2, and then, leading up to like people seeing the value and of like the potential revenue sides from an investment side.
Absolutely. Professionalism means also, and this is linked with the investment thing, to know more about finance.
Right.
Finance is not something that it is outside the sports industry at all. Again, more and more investors are considering, this is an industry at the end of the day.
Right.
So you have your own P&L, you have your own balance sheet, etc., as any other industry in the world.
Right.
The fourth one would be innovation. Maybe we can talk a little bit more about this in further detail, but innovation means not only technology.
Yeah.
Innovation means also the transformation of the business models.
Right.
To create to generate or ideate new sports, new formats, new ways of, communicate with fans, etc., etc., etc. New ways to get access to the content. Okay?
Yeah.
The fifth one actually is the new paradigm of getting access to the sporting audiovisual content, which means different screens. The typical, 20, 25 years ago, I'm older than you. So I also remember black and white TV, imagine. Yeah, anyway, that's another day story, okay?
We'll take that from another podcast.
Exactly. But we have different type of sizes of a screen at the end of the day. In a smartphone, you watch whatever you want, right? Even in a big screen. So it is from a screen perspective, from a, it's a matter of size. But then you have different type of access too. You have the linear TV, you have the pay-per-views, you have the OTTs, many and owned by properties or owned or specialized in sports or general, but you have also, betting companies and daily fantasy companies acquiring rights as well to generate traffic through it. Okay, you have the influencers, very, very important component of the ecosystem of the sports industry as we speak. We have also the fans. You can go to your preferred stadium or arena or event, shoot a video and upload it, right? So this is, and you are part of this conversation and you are part of this content, okay? And last but not least, in these 6 main trends, I would say fan engagement. fan engagement, phygital, obviously not digital, not physical, phygital, combination of phygital and digital.
For sure.
Clearly, we are not in the sports industry. At the end of the day, we are in the sportainment industry.
Yeah, yeah.
Which means that properties need to focus not on the avid fan, avid sport fan, but the avid and casual fan in both. Okay? And this is part of the conversation. This is part of the question moving forward in terms of, you know, the sports industry as an industry, as an economic sector, to be engaged 365 days per year, 24 hours per day with your fan. Okay.
Absolutely.
In a global basis.
And I'm thinking, you know, like, and I had like this talk not too long ago, like talking a little bit about the esport industry, you know, which is obviously, you know, being one of the, you know, emerging, you know, sectors of the sport and entertainment industry that has been growing a lot. And what people are sort of like discussing there is like how the esport industry is able to attract, you know, so many wide variety of fans, you know, into their audience, you know, which maybe like the sport itself haven't been able to, you know, touch upon, sort of like the casual fan, you know, because like a lot of people can relate to gaming and so forth. And what is interesting to see is like how the sport teams and properties are utilizing this as a way of, you know, increasing their fan base as well. From like, of course, you know, you can support, you know, when you see these professional teams, you know, going into the esport world, and hopefully someday like they transition into not only, you know, watching the esport games, but also watching, you know, what is happening out on the field or the stadium. So I think this is a very interesting area of like, you know, how, especially in terms of fan engagement, you know, from a team and an organizational standpoint from the sport industry.
Indeed, this is a very, very interesting point and subject. I would say the following. We need, first of all, to differentiate gaming and esports.
Yeah.
Esports is the top of the pyramid, and then you have a vast variety of titles or games.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Some of them are the typical purely esports, League of Legends, Call of Duty, Counter-Strike, Fortnite, etc. Okay.
Yeah.
But within the esports industry, we also have, let's say, the digital version of, let's say, traditional sports.
Right.
Meaning FIFA, EA for football, soccer.
Yeah.
Meaning NBA 2K, meaning F1, meaning MotoGP, meaning golf, etc., etc., etc. And this is this type of titles have a huge mass of followers, and gamers at the end of the day.
Yeah.
My company is undertaking several projects in regards to esports, and we know quite well this space. And you know, the avid plus the casual fan, okay, interested in esports, it's also interested in this part of the FIFAs, the NBA 2Ks, the MotoGPs, etc., etc., etc. Yes, it's a very, very interesting topic, and some properties are using this esports angle to incorporate or to increase the attraction for new fans. But at the end of the day, and these can be eventually considered two type of very, very different type of activities.
Right. Okay? No, for sure.
To create synergies, that's the important thing.
Yeah, like provide like to have it part of the value chain of like what's their ultimate goal.
And to fully understand that in the purely esports arena, where the money is mainly made is not out of the digital side of esports, but actual from the physical events.
Yeah,
this is where all majority of sponsors are, you know, investing some time of money in terms of activation, and you know, properties are investing in making a lot of money. So again, esports is not digital. Esports is a combination of digital and physical at the same time.
So let's talk a little bit about obviously, you know, some of the trends being impacted by the pandemic. And
Absolutely.
like will we see a change of trends, and if so, like what kind of new trends or changes will we see, being impacted by the pandemic, from your perspective?
That's a very interesting question. Absolutely. One is an increase in terms of professionalism.
Yeah.
In tough times, only the ones that are really well prepared
Yeah.
will be the ones that will survive.
100%.
Okay. Second, in terms of sponsorship, the situation has obliged both sides of the sponsorship equation, so
Yeah.
brands and properties, to talk more,
Right.
to better communicate, to try to understand the other side.
Right.
Okay, so and that's important. And also, sponsorship has speed up the process to incorporate in a more natural way what we call sponsorship with purpose.
Right.
Sponsorship is not only about locating some logos here or
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
It is not only about brand visibility.
Right.
It also, and it is not also only about values.
Right.
It talks about generation of revenues. It talks about reputation, etc., etc. And when it comes to reputation, sponsorship with purpose, this is what it makes sense.
Right.
Something that is worth for the society, presently and moving forward.
Absolutely.
Obviously, the pandemic and the COVID-19 has increased the need to digitalize all the relationship with the different stakeholders of the sport industry
Right.
ecosystem, among them fans, obviously.
Yeah.
So more digital as part of this digital world.
Right.
The fourth one, in terms of venues, stadia,
Yeah.
arenas, this is, I would say, the most painful thing, maybe, okay? Because they have seen their revenues to drop
Right.
dramatically,
Yeah.
but at the same time, they need to invest in accommodating, in adapting the
Right.
venues to the new requirements in terms of security, safety, health,
Yeah.
etc., etc., etc. Okay, and then innovation.
Right.
Sometimes properties have to innovate, reinvent at some point of time. Okay,
Right.
and again, this is not only technology.
Yeah.
This is in terms of new formats, new initiatives, new sports, new identify new revenue streams, and at the
Right.
same time trying to decrease some costs.
Yeah. No, for sure. And I think, we always talk about this whole situation when sometimes you need a crisis to happen in order to elevate innovation. And I mean, like, of course, as you said in the beginning too, it's like the ones that are prepared, the ones that are, ready to innovate, ready to like take new steps and look at it from a different lens, those are the ones that will survive and also, change the industry and make it, into a more professional space, because of course, everything essentially turned upside down, when sports stopped. And then you're like, okay, but how can we come out of this situation in the best possible way? Like, are there tools, are there resources we don't need anymore? Like, what other tools do we have to do? And hence, you see, partnerships with Zoom coming up, like other, untraditional maybe partners coming up in the field, in the sport industry. And I think we will see a lot of this, in the near future as well, and in the next few years, of like kind of a change of what kind of key partners that will be elevated in the sport industry. Not sort of like your typical banks and all this stuff, but more like, technological partners. At least that's what I see, from speaking with a lot of head of sponsorships here in Norway, some in the US as well, and just digging into that change of scenery. And I think it's, again, as you said, talking about like being able to take that step. And as you said, like from a health perspective, innovation perspective, like stadium health, it's going to be very crucial. And I think we're just looking at the new norm, the new normal of like this technically should already been in place at stadiums from the beginning. But then it needs like this sort of pandemic or crisis to happen when people are like, well, now we can actually do this, and it would be better for us. Maybe it's a little bit more expensive right now, but looking down like 5 10 years, this will be a great way to like keeping a track of like how do we keep our fans, more safe? How do we keep our staff more safe? How do we essentially, have a better tradition into, making sure that once a pandemic maybe come up again, we're better prepared and we're in a better position of coming through this, crisis much better than we were at this time.
Looking into the future, the beginner faces a choice that leads him to the triumph, or not. Being surrounded by like-minded professionals can be the best guarantee that you actually take that crucial career step.
Sport in Global is a digital network for sports jobs. It gives you the chance to be involved in the sports industry no matter who you are, regardless of gender, nationality, and experience.
Our AI system matches up talent with human resources. Candidates who align with the company's values and needs immediately get shortlisted. It saves time for HR and increases the opportunities available to applicants.
The platform identifies tailor-made recommendations based on user needs, so you're always aware of the possibilities out there right now.
Sport in Global is a place where students gain key tips about jobs and build the valuable connections that are essential for people at the beginning of their career path.
The path from candidate to champion starts with a single step in the right direction. Sign up to Sport in Global.
Sport in Global, the best way to enter the sports industry.
Absolutely, absolutely. And these are the key points, absolutely.
So if we're looking a little bit into, technology and data, which will obviously be key moving forward, when we talked a lot about different kind of trends, but if we focus like, technology and data, what are some of the main trends that we will see in the near future?
Yes, that is a crucial question. I would say the following. I remember when I used to study at ESADE business school many years ago. We were using, software to analyze data.
Right.
And I'm talking, again, many years ago. So data, it is not something new at all.
Right.
What technology provides you is the ability to gather data maybe in real time.
Right.
And in analyzing these data maybe quicker. But the most important thing in terms of data is to know what kind of information you need in order to make decisions.
Right.
So this information is pre-translated into data, okay?
Yeah.
And how to collect this data. That's as a primary thing. Moving forward, I would say that obviously technology and big data and all of this is crucial,
yeah.
and all the digital transformation, etc. But even with the best idea, with the best new concept of digital transformation, whatever.
Yeah.
I would say that the most important thing is not to have this idea, is not to have this algorithm, is not
right.
to have this new technology, is how to make it possible, is how to implement this
right.
idea or this new concept.
Yeah.
And this is not about technology. This is about professional skills. This is about processes. This is about procedures. This is about leadership.
Yeah.
This is about skills.
Right.
And this is the part of the question that usually it is not mentioned.
Yeah.
And I would say, according to my experience, that this is, I would say, the most important part, the most pivotal, variable in the equation. If you fail in the implementation, at the end of the day, you'll get nothing.
Right. No,
even if the idea is the concept is super innovative.
Yeah. No, for sure. And I think, looking back, like maybe 5-10 years ago, it was sort of like this way where everyone was talking about data, but no one really used didn't focus on like how to use it. They're just like, oh, we have tons of data, and I'm like, great, but like how do you actually benefit from it? And as you said, like, of course, now it's sort of like the real life accessibility and how fast data travels and like the information and you can gather. But if you don't, collect the right kind of information, you know, and only the most valuable information, then it's not useful, you know. Like, so it's about, as you said, how can the data and the information that you're being provided actually provide value, whether that's, you know, revenue generation, whether that's, you know, making smarter decision, being more efficient, what it might be, you know, those are the real metrics that you have to evaluate in the process of, you know, what kind of data you have and how it's useful.
Absolutely, we are speak the same language. Data by themselves, it means nothing.
Yeah,
you need information to you know, to sustain your decisions,
right.
Okay, or to take into account when the decision-making process is ongoing, in order to create value to
Right.
your stakeholders, whatever kind of stakeholders, in a sustainable way. In order to do this, you need data, but you need to know what kind of data and what kind of information. Otherwise, you will be lost in translation. You will be lost in the middle of a huge amount of data, and then so what?
Yeah, exactly. And if you look into, like, right now though, with sort of like, you know, remote teams happening a lot, you know, people working from home, you know, a lot of, you know, layoffs have been happening, but it was sort of, at least like in Europe now, sort of like going in a position where it's starting to rebuild the teams. You're starting to see, you know, sort of like, okay, we're getting back on our feet. And how do you see, you know, obviously recruitment tools playing into the development of the sport and entertainment industry, and, you know, what will be key, you know, moving forward now for these remote teams, the rebuilding of their organizations, to, you know, essentially utilizing this as a resource moving forward?
That's a great question. I mean, we live in a global world, definitely. Even in these tough times when traveling is not that easy because of, you know, quarantines and so forth and so on, but this will pass, okay? But we live in a global, and even with the you know, consequences of the pandemic and all this digital boom, etc., we are even much more global right now compared to 6 months ago. A lot of people has discovered the Zooms of the world and the Teams of the world. So and that's the reality. So we are more global. More global means more opportunities.
Right.
We are closer to more opportunities, but at the same time, the competitors are also closer to these opportunities.
Right.
Yeah. So the, let's say, the field of the game has been expanded. Right. We are more global, more opportunities, but again, the other competitors are also aware of these opportunities. So all these, such as Sporting Global, and what helps is to have a more broader understanding of what's happening in the marketplace. But it allows also properties and even the you know, the professionals to do a better pre-screening. Of the pre-screening, for example, in terms of candidates. In terms of their, you know, curricula, in terms of their some kind of skills, some kind of background, etc. It helps all this process. But at the end of the day, the last, let's say, step, okay, I would say that the physical, you know, conversation and getting to know the candidate in this case, it's still a must. Okay. I will never hire a CEO without knowing him or her. Obviously. Okay.
No, for sure.
But the process is helping. All these platforms such as yours and others are absolutely helping all this process, because at the end of the day, it helps also to create communities.
Right.
And this is very, very important.
It is.
So the sports industry professionals at the end of the day should have the need to feel that they belong to something.
Right.
And this is not something just like, you know, how important is the sports industry from an employment perspective, from you know, GDP perspective, etc. But to get to know each other, to create network opportunities, but also internally and externally,
right,
towards the marketplace,
yeah,
and the labor market. And this is very, very important. And all these platforms such as yours, they are helping and assisting in this process moving forward.
Yeah, and I think like you're touching upon a very, key elements, especially like with the community, like right now in this challenging time. I mean, what has been fun for us, and obviously we're not going to talk a lot about, Sporting Global platform and all this stuff, but what is interesting is sort of like how we've seen that people have kind of like felt the platform as sort of like a sanctuary in a sense, where it's like a place where you can come and meet like-minded professionals and share interesting stories about what's happening in the industry, try to like look at where are we going from here, and focus on how are we taking the industry to the next step. And I think also from like an organizational standpoint that now it's the time to like look a little bit, you have the opportunity to look broader from obviously a recruitment perspective, because you're in many cases are hiring remote talent, which means like, okay, they can be based wherever it is in the world, and you can maybe like, get interns, entry-level positions from like all over, and maybe explore markets that you weren't as familiar with before. And I think that's a huge opportunity and a potential for a lot of organizations out there to utilize this time now to explore maybe markets that they weren't, as fully aware of as they were before this, because they felt like, okay, we needed like, stationary manpower, and, the cost of travels and all this stuff has been, drastically, decreased because of like, obviously people can't travel as much. And I think like that opens up a lot of opportunities, and now it's about, grabbing that opportunity and taking advantage of, okay, how can we make, again, talking about the value creation of like utilizing the situation, innovate in a time of crisis.
Absolutely, this is important. Absolutely critical.
So as we're looking to, and we're about to wrap up here, and I think like if there's one like last question, we have, and obviously there's usually a lot of, young professional students here listening to the podcast and trying to, get a sense, and I think they've been really enjoying this episode so far. And if there's some tips you have, for those students on how to be aware of the trends, and, what can they do to stay on top of this and try to like, have a better perspective of like where the trends are going, like what are some of the steps that they can take?
Yeah, that's an extremely interesting question. I would say the following, at least 3 components. First, networking.
Right.
This
100%.
is critical. To get to know people, to exchange opinions, comments, whatever type of, networking. Yeah.
Right.
To know you, to know the CMO of a company, to know the CEO of a federation, etc., etc., etc.
Right.
In different levels. Okay.
Yeah.
But this is critical. Yes, networking.
100%.
Then know-how. Know-how
Yeah.
means reading a lot, articles, e-newsletters, books.
Right.
Even the e-books, but books as well.
Any
but
shape
also,
of book,
exactly. But also, attending and participating at webinars such as yours or the GZIC ones, etc., etc., etc.
Right.
You need to know people, but you need to know also about the industry.
Right.
And what are the main trends and the main insights of the industry. And a lot of consultants, among them our own consulting firm, SPSG. Right. We produce, along with partners such as World Football Summit or GZIC, for example, reports, okay? And this is part of this equation to know much better where the industry goes and where the industry is and is moving to. And then be proactive.
Right.
Nobody knows that you are seated in your, chair or sofa waiting for. No, guys, you need to be proactive. But you don't need to be proactive in the sense of, okay, property A, property B, or brand Z. I'm here, I would like to help, I would like, to contribute. In what sense?
Right.
Be more proactive and be more concrete
Right.
What kind of added value can you add at the end of the day to the property or to your employee? Even, you know, try to ideate some kind of mini project, targeted, tailor-made for that property, for that employer at the end of the day, and try to convince them. Yeah. So networking, know-how, try to be proactive, adding value, and then do not hesitate to ask.
Right. 100%.
Even
so
you
important.
and I, we had, you know, we were 18 years old many years ago. Me, by far, I'm or 25 or even 30 years old. Okay.
Well, I'm not 30 yet, but
I know. But do not hesitate to ask, please, guys.
Right. No,
I mean,
100%.
and we are in a global, you know, world, and there's a lot of platforms to ask people and to get to know and to, you know, interact and and to connect at the end of the day. These
and it's about what you're saying,
elements.
right? It's being, you know, showing that interest and taking that first step. That's what it comes down to, you know, because I mean, like, no one knows where you are, or like, unless you put yourself out there. Like, who are you? What can you do? And provide value and think about, you know, what can I learn? You know, and I think like it goes back as well, like to, you know, when I was studying back in some years ago at my master and so forth in San Francisco, and I was, you know, we focused a lot on like speaking with people, like having informational interviews, you know, getting to know people. And I said, of course, at that time I was focusing a lot on, you know, the business side of the industry, because that's what I wanted to try to learn more. But I still reached out to, you know, positions that I've never heard about before. That was like, what is this? I just want to understand, you know, what is their role and how are they important? Because at the end of the day, if you have an ambitions of, you know, I don't know, being a CEO, a CMO, COO, or like having a leader position in the industry, you need to know the structure of the industry and how these different key players are functioning. Because at the end of the day, if you're going to lead them, you need to understand, you know, how this all ties together. Why is this important? How are you going to build them and find your path? And along the way, you might discover, you know, a lot of interesting opportunities, you know, maybe find your passion about like within a certain area. And as Carlos said, you know, it's about, you know, you need to take that step. You need to showcase and be proactive because no one is waiting for you. So you got to take that step and be ready to dive after it and seek the knowledge, seek the opportunities and put yourself out there.
Absolutely. These are the key elements you need as a person who works or would like to work in the sports industry.
Right.
You have to be registered, sign up at, you know, 3, 4, 5 newsletters, for example. To get to know what's out there and what's happening and who is acquiring what kind of brands or properties and who is the new CEO of whatever, you know, company or club. This is part of the game.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm thinking like one thing as well, which we've been focusing a lot on our new interns here at Sporting Global, is that, you know, once you, I mean, like it's of course, as you said, very important to read and understand, like, okay, keep aware of what's happening in the industry. But one of the things we talked about too, of like, you know, when they're sharing like sort of like their, say they're sharing like they read something in the news about, you know, a new sponsorship agreement, and then maybe add on your thoughts, you know, how do you see this is contributing to the industry? Like, what is your perspective on that scenario or case? Because with that, you go from like, everyone can share an update in the sport industry, but what exactly like are you taking from it? Like, how are you showcasing that you understand this and maybe can provide some more value? And hence you go from like someone who's reading about the sports news to actually becoming a sport professional. And that's going to be a key differentiator.
Added value.
Absolutely. Well, Carlos, I mean, like we could talk about a lot of things, I think, and like we have a lot more to talk about, but I think we got to make a couple more episodes down the road, like diving into some of the trends, maybe like a little bit more specific, a lot of the things that are happening. But for now, I think, you know, we're about to wrap up, and I would like to thank you, Carlos, so much for taking the time to sharing your expertise, your knowledge. with our audience, and it's been some really great advice. And if there's some stuff you need to take out of this, you know, it's stay on top of the trends, being proactive, network a lot, and, you know, take the step out. So I don't know, Carlos, have any final comment?
No, just thanks again for the opportunity. It's a pleasure, and also it's a pleasure to try to contribute and add some value to your initiative and to the sports industry at the end of the day. Okay?
Absolutely, so, it's a pleasure to have you part of it. And
thanks so much indeed.
And every video we do, we always finish with "Vi snakkes," which means I see you later in Norwegian.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right.